In the smoke-filled battlefields of the Middle East, a J-10C fighter jet painted with Pakistani military insignia pierced the tranquility of Iranian airspace. When Iran's official media announced on June 14, 2025 that Pakistani warplanes had entered its airspace to help intercept Israeli missiles and drones, the world suddenly realized that the South Asian nuclear power was intervening in this life-and-death game in the most severe manner. Pakistan's choice of airborne blade to aid Iran is the Chinese-made J-10C fighter jet, equipped with PL-15 air-to-air missiles of incredible range, forming a deterrent barrier to Israeli airstrikes. The US-made F-16 fighters are deliberately hidden behind, reflecting the cold reality of geopolitics. During the India-Pakistan conflict, the United States expressly prohibited the Pakistani side to use this type of aircraft, and even more fatal is that the US side to keep the backdoor program to remotely lock the engine. To use the F-16 against Israel would be tantamount to sending pilots to their airborne coffins. A deeper look at Islamabad's decision-making motives, in fact, multiple strategic considerations of life and death choices. The primary motivation is historical. Israel's continued military support to India during the Indo-Pakistani standoff is seen by the Pakistanis as a hostile act, and this military support is a perfect window of opportunity to settle a debt of bloodshed. Deeper than that, national security alarms are sounding. If Iran's air defense system collapses, millions of refugees will flood across the border, and terrorists are likely to infiltrate in disguise, hitting the already fragile economic and social fabric. When Israeli warplanes fired missiles in Iraqi airspace, but wantonly struck Iranian deep targets, this, and declared war of aggression, just for Pakistan's military intervention to provide a legal basis. Intriguingly, Pakistan and Iran also met earlier this year, and in January Iran's cross-border strikes against G strongholds within Pakistan's borders led to countermeasures in the form of airstrikes on Iran's Sistan-Balochistan province by Kingpin fighter jets and Rainbow 4 drones. At the time of the tensions, China launched a key mediation. The Vice Minister of the Foreign Ministry urgently met with Pakistani dignitaries, and a hotline between Beijing and Tehran was activated at the same time. Within 10 days, the foreign ministers of the two countries shook hands in Islamabad to discuss a joint counter-terrorism mechanism. This dramatic rapprochement has laid the groundwork for today's concerted fight against Israel. Looking at the balance of military power, Pakistan's involvement is by no means a show of strength. The Iranian Air Force is in a deep equipment crisis. The only remaining 20 or so F-14 Tomcat fighters rely on disassembled parts, and the introduction of the Su-35 program has been aborted due to diplomatic disagreements between Russia and Iran and a lack of production capacity. Pakistan, on the other hand, has 300 modern warplanes, including J-10Cs, Block Lords and F-16s, which gives it an overwhelming advantage over Iran. When Israel's 200 warplanes destroyed Iran's key targets, with zero battle losses in recent airstrikes, it exposed the truth that Iran's air defense system is fragmented, a mix of US and Russian equipment is incompatible with each other, and it is difficult to weave a heavenly net of S-300S and Standard 1 missiles. At this moment J-10C KL-J-7 a phased array radar and PL-15 missile combination, just to make up for Iran's most deadly over-the-horizon defense gap. It is the strategic resonance of the China-Pakistan-Iran triangle that underpins the roots of this expedition. The Gwadar port, the terminal of the China-Pakistan economic corridor, is adjacent to Iran, and once Iran falls, this flagship project of the Belt and Road Initiative will be exposed to the threat of hostile forces. In November last year, China and Pakistan, Ocean Guardian 3, exercise sight in the northern Arabian Sea, pointing to the Strait of Hormuz. China's 6 warships in the Middle East cruising posture, all to the west to pass out the defensive energy corridor, and the determination of regional allies. Pakistan's cross-border assistance to Iran, not only to the big brother behind the implementation of the strategic will, but also to the Middle East power reconstruction of the initiative to fall, to prevent Iran from falling to the US and Israel, the three countries concerned about the common threat of life and death. When the PL-15 missile's tail flame cuts through the night sky of the Persian Gulf, its technical deterrence far exceeds its tactical significance. This ultra-long-range air-to-air missile with a range of more than 200 kilometers, together with the advanced avionics system of the J-10C fighter aircraft, can carry out sniping at the source before Israeli warplanes launch air-to-ground weapons. Especially for Israeli F-35I stealth fighters, The PL-15's double-pulse engine gives it sustained kinetic energy in the final stage, which, together with the active electronic scanning capability of the KL-J-7A radar, effectively compresses the stealth fighter's window of surprise defense. The Israeli Air Force relies on the Arrow-3 anti-missile system to intercept ballistic missiles, but the low-altitude surprise defense of cruise missiles and UAVs are not enough, which is exactly where the strategic value of Pakistan's UAV force and the J-10C to form a high and low collocation lies. A deeper strategic chess game is unfolding on both sides of the Strait of Hormuz. Pentagon intelligence shows that Pakistani pilots are not only flying fighters into the air, but also secretly establishing a forward command center in Isfahan province in central Iran. The ZDK-03 early warning aircraft deployed here is like an airborne nerve center, with its disc-shaped radome scanning a radius of 450 kilometers of airspace per minute and real-time interconnection with the Iranian ground radar station data chain. This depth of integration allows the Pakistani side to coordinate the Iraqi army's remaining Bavar 373 air defense system to form a relay interception. When the Israeli missiles across the Iraqi border, the AWACS is to guide the J-10C forward to pick up the enemy. If the target breaks through the air defenses, the Bavar 373 air defense system can be used to intercept the enemy's missiles. Bavar 373 in the last 40 kilometers of airspace to implement complementary fire. This three-dimensional defense network forced the Israeli Air Force to withdraw its launching positions to the eastern Mediterranean Sea, significantly reducing its striking accuracy. The specter of history repeating itself is even more acute for Pakistan, as it was the Shah of Iran, Pahlavi, who urgently deployed 30 F-4 Ghosts during the Third Indo-Pakistani War in 1971 to prevent Pakistan from collapsing on both the eastern and western fronts. Half a century later, the role of the swap, Islamabad knows that if you let Iran be dismembered, he will face the United States and India's strategic pincer attack, especially when Indian Prime Minister Modi visited Tel Aviv immediately after the Israeli airstrikes, announcing the accelerated delivery of Barak 8 air defense systems and Heron drones. New Delhi and Jerusalem's military collaboration has become a substantial alliance. Pakistan must draw a red line in the Middle East with the J-10C's PL-15 missiles, or else the Kashmir front will face infiltration by more advanced Israeli weapons. The economic lifelines are tied so that there is no turning back from this expedition. The Iranian port of Chabahar and the Pakistani port of Gwadar are only 72 nautical miles apart, and the two pipelines are like twin veins. The former carries India's trade vision for Central Asia, while the latter is tied to the energy security of the China-Pakistan economic corridor. If the Iranian regime collapses, Gwadar will be half surrounded by hostile forces, and China's $15 billion port expansion project could be reduced to a strategic island. More urgently, the World Bank reports that if a refugee wave erupts in Iran, 870,000 people will flood into Pakistan's Balochistan province in the first month, directly overrunning the province's emergency reserve system, which can only sustain 200,000 people. This domino effect has forced the Chief of Staff of the Pakistan Air Force to personally sit at the Quetta base and direct a fleet of J-10Cs to implement forward presence deterrence. The roar of the J-10C's engines shakes the night sky of the Middle East, and its significance goes far beyond tactical support. When Pakistan will be the most elite fighter aircraft sent to the former disagreement frequently neighboring countries, a reshaping of the regional power pattern of the drama has been unveiled. The security architecture led by the Eastern powers is to test its success in combat, and the Middle East 100 years in the game of chess. A new chess player has been in the game. At this moment in Tehran's underground command post, Khamenei's decision-making screen is reflecting a dilemma. Is it to mobilize the remaining missiles of the Revolutionary Guards to carry out saturation retaliation, or sign the ceasefire agreement handed over by the U.S. secret channel? The J-10C's cruising route is like a hanging sword, not only supporting the air shield for the Iranian resistance, but also silently measuring this ancient civilization's last temperament and dignity. When the dawn of the Persian Gulf comes again, history will witness that under the wings of this silver-gray war eagle, it not only carries a country's will to revenge, but also beats the heartbeat of the multipolar world's cocoon rebirth.